The Tomb by Maupassant. The guests filed slowly into the hotel's great dining hall and took their places. The waiters began to serve them leisurely, to give the tardy ones time to arrive and to save themselves the bother of bringing back the courses. And the old bathers, the leery habitués with whom the season was far advanced, kept a close watch on the door each time it opened, hoping for the coming of new faces. New faces, the single distraction of all pleasure resorts. We go to dinner chiefly to canvass the daily arrivals, to wonder who they are, and what they do, and what they think. A restless desire seems to have taken possession of us, a longing for pleasant adventures, for friendly acquaintances, perhaps for possible lovers. In this elbow-to-elbow life of our unknown neighbors become of paramount importance. Curiosity is piqued, sympathy on the alert, and the social instinct doubly active. We have hatreds for a week, friendships for a month, and view all men with the special eyes of a watering-place intimacy. Sometimes during an hour's chat after dinner, under the trees of the park, where ripples a healing spring, we discover men of superior intellect and surprising merit. A month later, have wholly forgotten those new friends so charming at first sight. There, too, more especially than elsewhere, serious and lasting ties are formed. We see each other every day, we learn to know each other very soon, and in the affection that springs up so rapidly between us there is mingled much of the sweet abandon of old and tried intimates. And later on, how tender are the memories cherished of the first hours of this friendship, of the first communion in which the soul came to light, of the first glances that questioned and responded to the secret thoughts and interrogatories of the lips have yet dared not to utter, of the first cordial confidence and delicious sensation of opening one's heart to someone who has seemed to lay bare to you his own. The very dullness of the hours, as it were, the monotony of days all alike, but renders more complete the rapid budding and blooming of friendship's flower. That evening, then, as on every evening, we awaited the appearance of unfamiliar faces. There came only two, but very peculiar ones, those of a man and a woman, father and daughter. They seemed to have stepped from the pages of some weird legend, and yet there was an attraction about them, albeit an unpleasant one, that made me set them down at once as the victims of some fatality. The father was tall, spare, a little bent, with hair blanched white, too white for his still young countenance, and in his manner about his person the sedate austerity of carriage that bespeaks the Puritan. The daughter was possibly some 24 or 25 years of age. She was very slight, emaciated, her exceedingly pale countenance bearing a languid, spiritless expression. One of those people whom we sometimes encounter, apparently too weak for the cares and tasks of life, too feeble to move or do the things that we must do every day. Nevertheless, the girl was pretty, with the ethereal beauty of apparition. It was she, undoubtedly, who came for the benefit of the waters. They chanced to be placed at a table immediately opposite to me, and I was not long in noticing that the father, too, had a strange affection. Something wrong about the nerves, it seemed. Whenever he was going to reach for anything, his hand, with a jerky twitch, described a sort of fluttering zigzag before he was able to grasp what he was after. Soon the motion disturbed me so much, I kept my head turned in order not to see it, but not before I had also observed that the young girl kept her glove on her left hand while she ate. Dinner ended. I went out, as usual, for a turn in the grounds belonging to the establishment. A sort of park, I might say, stretching clear to the little station of Aveyron, Châtel-Guyon, nestling in a gorge at the foot of the high mountain from which flowed the sparkling, bubbling springs, hot from the furnace of an ancient volcano. Beyond us there, the domes, small, extinct craters, of which Châtel-Guyon is the starting point, raising their serrated heads above the long chain, while beyond the domes came two distinct regions, one of them needle-like peaks, the other of bold, precipitous mountains. It was very warm that evening, and I contented myself with pacing to and fro under the rustling trees, gazing at the mountains and listening to the strains of the band pouring from the casino, situated on a knoll that overlooked the grounds. Presently I perceived the father and daughter coming toward me with slow steps. I bowed to them in that pleasant continental fashion which one always salutes his hotel companions. The gentleman halted at once. "Pardon me, sir," said he, "but may I ask if you can direct us to a short walk, easy and pretty, if possible?" "Certainly," I answered, and offered to lead them myself to the valley through which the swift river flows, a deep, narrow cleft between two great declivities, rocky and wooded. They accepted, and as we walked, we naturally discussed the virtue of the mineral waters. They had, as I surmised, come there on his daughter's account. "She has a strange malady," said he, "the seat of which her physicians cannot determine. She suffers from the most inexplicable nervous symptoms. Sometimes they declare her ill of heart disease, sometimes of a liver complaint, again of spinal trouble. At present, they attribute it to the stomach, that great motor and regulator of the body. This protean disease of 1,000 forms, 1,000 modes of attack. It is why we are here. I myself think it is her nerves. In any case, it is sad. This reminded me of his own jerking hand. It may be hereditary, said I. Your own nerves are a little disturbed, are they not? Mine, he asked tranquilly, not at all. I have always possessed the calmest nerves. Then suddenly, as if bethinking himself, for this, touching his hand, is not nerves, but the result of a shock, a terrible shock that I suffered once. Fancy it, sir, this child of mine has been buried alive. I could find nothing to say. I was dumb with surprise. Yes, he continued, buried alive. But hear the story. It is not long. For some time past, Juliet had seemed affected with the disordered action of the heart. We were finally certain that the trouble was organic and feared the worst. One day it came. She was brought in lifeless, dead. She had fallen dead while walking in the garden. Physicians came in haste, but nothing could be done. She was gone. For 2 days and nights I watched beside her myself, and with my own hands placed her in her coffin, which I followed to the cemetery and saw placed in the family vault. This was in the country, in the province of Lorraine. It had been my wish, too, that she should be buried in her jewels, bracelets, necklace, and rings, all presents that I had given her, and in her first ball dress. You can imagine, sir, the state of my heart in returning home. She was all that I had left. My wife had been dead for many years. I returned, in truth, half mad, shut myself alone in my room, and fell into my chair dazed, unable to move, merely a miserable breathing wreck. Soon my old valet, Prosper, who had helped me place Juliet in her coffin and lay her away for her last sleep, came in noiselessly to see if he could not induce me to eat. I shook my head, answering nothing. He persisted. Monsieur is wrong. This will make him ill. Will Monsieur allow me, then, to put him to bed? No, no, I answered. Let me alone. He yielded and withdrew. How many hours passed? I do not know. What a night! What a night it was! Very cold. My fire of logs had long since burned out in the great fireplace, and the wind, a wintry blast, charged with an icy frost, howled and screamed about the house and strained at my windows with a curiously sinister sound. Long hours, I say, rolled by. I sat still where I had fallen, prostrated, overwhelmed, my eyes wide open but my body strengthless, dead, my soul drowned in despair. Suddenly, the great bell gave a loud peal. I gave such a leap that my chair cracked under me. The slow, solemn sound rang through my empty house. I looked at the clock. It was 2 a.m. Who could be coming at such an hour? Twice again the bell pulled sharply. The servants would never answer, perhaps never hear it. I took up a candle and made my way to the door. I was about to demand, "Who is there?" but ashamed of the weakness, I nerved myself and drew back the bolts. My heart throbbed, my pulse beat. I threw back the panel brusquely, and there, in the darkness, saw a shape like a phantom, dressed in white. I recoiled, speechless with anguish, stammering, Who are you?" A voice answered, "It is I, father." It was my child, Juliet. Truly, I thought myself mad. I shuddered, shrinking backward before the spectre as it advanced, gesticulating with my hand to ward off the apparition. It is that gesture which has never left me. Again, the phantom spoke. "Father, father, see, I am not dead. Someone came to rob me of my jewels. They cut off my finger. The flowing blood revived me." And I saw then that she was covered with blood. I fell to my knees, panting, sobbing, laughing, all in one, as soon as I regained my senses, but still so bewildered I scarcely comprehended the happiness that had come to me. I took her in my arms, carried her to her room, and rang frantically for Prosper to rekindle the fire, bring a warm drink for her, and go for the doctor. He came running, entered, gazed a moment at my daughter in the chair, gave a gasp of fright and horror, and fell back dead. It was he who had opened the vault, who had wounded and robbed my child, and then abandoned her, for he could not efface all trace of his deed. And he had not even taken the trouble to return the coffin to its niche. Sure, besides of not being suspected by me, who trusted him so fully? We are truly very unfortunate people, monsieur. He was silent. Meanwhile, the night had come on, enveloping in the gloom the still and solitary little valley. A sort of mysterious dread seemed to fall upon me in presence of these strange beings. This corpse come to life, and this father with his painful gestures. "Let us return," said I. "The night has grown chill." And still in silence we retraced our steps back to the hotel, and I shortly afterward returned to the city. I lost all further knowledge of the two peculiar visitors to my favorite summer resort. He was dead, the head of a high tribunal, the upright magistrate, whose irreproachable life was a proverb in all the courts of France. Advocates, young counselors, judges had saluted, bowing low in token of profound respect, remembering that grand face, pale and thin, illumined by two bright, deep-set eyes. He had passed his life in pursuing crime and in protecting the weak. Swindlers and murderers had no more redoubtable enemy, for he seemed to read in the recesses of their souls their most secret thoughts. He was dead, now, at the age of 82, honored by the homage and followed by the regrets of the whole people. Soldiers in red breeches had escorted him to the tomb, and men in white cravats had shed on his grave tears that seemed to be real. But listen to the strange paper found by the dismayed notary in the desk where the judge had kept filed the records of great criminals. It was entitled, Why? June 20th, 1851. I have just left court. I have condemned Blondel to death. Now why did this man kill his 5 children? Frequently one meets with people to whom killing is a pleasure. Yes, it should be a pleasure. The greatest of all, perhaps, for it is not killing most like creating? To make and to destroy. These two words contain the history of the universe, the history of all worlds. All that is, all. Why is it not intoxicating to kill? June 25th. To think that there is a being who lives, who walks, who runs. A being? What is a being? An animated thing which bears in it the principle of motion, and a will ruling that principle? It clings to nothing, this thing. Its feet are independent of the ground. It is a grain of life that moves on the earth. And this grain of life, coming, I know not whence, one can destroy at one's will. Then nothing more. It perishes. It is finished. Why, then, is it a crime to kill? Yes, why? On the contrary, it is the law of nature. Every being has the mission to kill. He kills to live, and he lives to kill. The beast kills without ceasing, all day, every instant of its existence. Man kills without ceasing, to nourish himself. But since, in addition, he needs to kill for pleasure, he has invented the chase. The child kills the insect he finds, the little birds, all the little animals that come in his way. But this does not suffer for the irresistible need of massacre that is in us. It is not enough to kill the beasts. We must kill man too. Long ago, this need was satisfied by human sacrifice. Now, the necessity of living in society has made murder a crime. We condemn and punish the assassin, but as we cannot live without yielding to this natural and imperious instinct of death, we relieve ourselves from time to time by wars. Then a whole nation slaughters another nation. It is a feast of blood, a feast that maddens armies and intoxicates the civilians, women and children, who read, by lamplight at night, the feverish story of massacre. And do we despise those picked out to accomplish these butcheries of men? No! They are loaded with honors. They are clad in gold and resplendent stuffs. They wear plumes on their head and ornaments on their breasts, and they are given crosses, rewards, titles of every kind. They are proud, respected, loved by women, cheered by the crowd, solely because their mission is to shed human blood. They drag through the streets their instruments of death, and the passerby, clad in black, looks on with envy, for to kill is the great law, put by nature in the heart of existence. There is nothing more beautiful and honorable than killing. June 30th. To kill is the law, because nature loves eternal youth. She seems to cry in all her unconscious acts, quick, quick, quick. The more she destroys, the more she renews herself. July 2nd. It must be a pleasure, unique and full of zest, to kill, to place before you a living thing, a living, thinking being, to make therein a little hole, nothing but a little hole, and to see that red liquid flow, which is the blood, which is the life, and then to have before you only a heap of limp flesh, cold, inert, void of thought. August 5th. I, who have passed my life in judging, condemning, killing by words pronounced, killing by the guillotine, those who had killed by the knife, if I should do as all the assassins whom I have smitten have done? I, who would know it? August 10th. Who would ever know? Who would ever suspect me? Especially if I should choose a being I had no interest in doing away with. August 22nd. I could resist no longer. I have killed a little creature as an experiment. As a beginning, Jean, my servant, had a goldfinch in a cage hung in the office window. I sent him on an errand, and I took the little bird in my hand where I felt his heartbeat. It was warm. I went up to my room. From time to time, I squeezed it tighter. Its heart beat faster. It was atrocious and delicious. I was nearly choking it, but I could not see the blood. Then I took scissors, short nail scissors, and I cut its throat in 3 strokes, quite gently. It opened its bill. It struggled to escape me, but I held it. Oh, I held it. I could have held a mad dog, and I saw the blood trickle. And then I did as assassins do, real ones. I washed the scissors, and I washed my hands. I sprinkled water and took the body, the corpse, to the garden to hide it. I buried it under a strawberry plant. It will never be found. Every day I can eat a strawberry from that plant. How one can enjoy life when one knows how. My servant cried. He thought his bird had flown. How could he expect me? Ha! August 25th. I must kill a man. I must. August 30th. It is done. But what a little thing. I had gone for a walk in the forest of Vernon. I was thinking of nothing, literally nothing. See, a child on the road, a little child eating a slice of bread and butter. He stops to see me, and he says, "Good day, Mr. President." And the thought enters my mind, shall I kill him? I answer, "You are alone, my boy." "Yes, sir." "All alone in the wood." "Yes, sir." The wish to kill him intoxicated me like wine. I approached him quite softly, persuaded that he was going to run away, and suddenly I seized him by the throat. He held my wrists in his little hands, and his body writhed like a feather on the fire. Then he moved no more. I threw the body in the ditch, then some weeds on top of it. I returned home and dined well. What a little thing it was. In the evening, I was very gay, light, rejuvenated, and passed the evening at the prefect's. They found me witty, but I have not seen blood. I am not tranquil. August 31st. The body has been discovered. They are hunting for the assassin. Ha. September 1st. 2 tramps have been arrested. Proofs are lacking. September 2nd. The parents have come to see me. They wept. October 6th. Nothing has been discovered. Some strolling vagabond must have done the deed. If I had seen the blood flow, it seems to me I should be tranquil now. October 10th. Yet another. I was walking by the river after breakfast, and I saw under a willow a fisherman asleep. It was noon. A spade, as if expressly put there for me, was standing in a potato field nearby. I took it. I returned. I raised it like a club, and with one blow of the edge, I cleft the fisherman's head. Oh, he bled, this one. Rose-colored blood. It flowed into the water quite gently, and I went away with a grave step. If I had been seen, I should have been made an excellent assassin. October 25th. The affair of the fisherman makes great noise. His nephew, who fished with him, is charged with the murder. October 26th. The examining magistrate affirms that the nephew is guilty. Everybody in town believes it. October 27th. The nephew defends himself badly. He had gone to the village to buy bread and cheese, he declares. He swears that his uncle had been killed in his absence. Who would believe him? October 28th. The nephew has all but confessed. So much have they made him lose his head. Justice. November 15th. There are overwhelming proofs against the nephew, who was his uncle's heir. I shall preside at the sessions. January 25th, 1852. To death! To death! To death! I have had him condemned to death. The Advocate General spoke like an angel. Yet another. I shall go see him executed. March 10th. It is done. They guillotined him this morning. He died very well. Very well. That gave me pleasure. How fine it is to see a man's head cut off. Now I shall wait. I can wait. It would take such a little thing to let myself be caught. The manuscript contained more pages, but told of no new crime. Alienist physicians to whom the awful story has been submitted declare that there are in the world many unknown madmen, as adroit and as terrible as this monstrous lunatic. Mademoiselle Cocotte by Maupassant. We were just leaving the asylum when I saw a tall, thin man in a corner of the court who kept on calling an imaginary dog. He was crying in a soft, tender voice, "Cocotte, come here, Cocotte, my beauty," and slapping his thigh as one does when calling an animal. I asked the physician, "Who is that man?" He answered, "Oh, he is not at all interesting. He is a coachman named Francois who became insane after drowning his dog." I insisted, "Tell me a story. The most simple and humble things are sometimes those which touch our hearts most deeply." Here is this man's adventure, which was obtained from a friend of his, a groom. There was a family of rich bourgeois who lived in a suburb of Paris. They had a villa in the middle of a park at the edge of the Seine. Their coachman was this Francois, a country fellow, somewhat dull, kind-hearted, simple, and easy to deceive. One evening, he was returning home. A dog began to follow him. At first he paid no attention to it, but the creature's obstinacy made him turn around. He looked to see if he knew this dog. No, he had never seen it. It was a female dog and frightfully thin. She was trotting behind him with a mournful and famished look, her tail between her legs, her ears flattened against her head, and stopping and starting whenever he did. He tried to chase this skeleton away and cried, "Run along, get out, kiss, kiss." She retreated a few steps, then sat down and waited, and when the coachman started to walk again, she followed along behind him. He pretended to pick up some stones. The animal ran a little farther away, but came back again as soon as the man's back was turned. Then the coachman Francois took pity on the beast and called her. The dog approached him timidly. The man patted her protruding ribs, moved by the beast's misery, and he cried, come here." Immediately she began to wag her tail, and feeling herself taken in, adopted, she began to run along ahead of her new master. He made her a bed on the straw in the stable. Then he ran to the kitchen for some bread. When she had eaten all she could, she curled up and went to sleep. When his employers heard of this the next day, they allowed the coachman to keep the animal. It was a good beast, caressing and faithful, intelligent and gentle. Nevertheless, Francois adored Cocotte, and he kept repeating, "That beast is human, she only lacks speech." He had a magnificent red leather collar made for her, which bore these words engraved on a copper plate, "Mademoiselle Cocotte, belonging to the Frenchman Francois." She was remarkably prolific, and 4 times a year would give birth to a batch of little animals belonging to every variety of the canine race. Francois would pick out the one which he would leave her, and then he would unmercifully throw the others into the river. But soon the cook joined her complaints to those of the gardener. She would find dogs under the stove, in the icebox, in the coal bin, and they would steal everything they came across. Finally, the master, tired of complaints, impatiently ordered Francois to get rid of Cocotte. In despair, the man tried to give her away. Nobody wanted her. Then he decided to lose her, and he gave her to a teamster, who was to drop her on the other side of Paris, near Joinville-le-Pont. Cocotte returned the same day. Some decision had to be taken. 5 francs was given to a train conductor to take her to Havre. He was to drop her there. 3 days later, she returned to the stable, thin, footsore, and tired out. The master took pity on her and let her stay, but other dogs were attracted, as before, and one evening, when a big dinner party was on, a stuffed turkey was carried away by one of them right under the cook's nose, and she did not dare to stop him. This time the master completely lost his temper and said angrily to Francois, "If you don't throw this beast into the water before tomorrow morning, I'll put you out, do you hear?" The man was dumbfounded, and he returned to his room to pack his trunk, preferring to leave the place. Then he bethought himself that he could find no other situation as long as he dragged this animal about with him. He thought of his good position, where he was well paid and well fed, and he decided that a dog was really not worth all that. At last, he decided to rid himself of Cocotte at daybreak. He slept badly. He rose at dawn, and taking a strong rope, went to get the dog. She stood up slowly, shook herself, stretched, and came to the welcome of her master. Then his courage forsook him, and he began to pet her affectionately, stroking her long ears, kissing her muzzle, and calling her tender names. But a neighboring clock struck 6. He could no longer hesitate. He opened the door, calling, "Come!" the beast wagging her tail, understanding that she was to be taken out. They reached the beach, and he chose a place where the water seemed deep. Then he knotted the rope around the leather collar and tied a heavy stone to the other end. He seized Cocotte in his arms and kissed her madly, as though he were taking leave of some human being. He held her to his breast, rocked her, and called her, "My dear little Cocotte, my sweet little Cocotte," and she grunted with pleasure. 10 times he tried to throw her into the water, and each time he lost courage. But suddenly he made up his mind and threw her as far from him as he could. At first she tried to swim, as she did when he gave her a bath. But her head, dragged down by the stone, kept going under, and she looked at her master with wild human glances as she struggled like a drowning person. Then the front part of her body sank, while her hind legs waved wildly out of the water. Finally, those also disappeared. Then, for 5 minutes, bubbles rose to the surface as though the river were boiling, and Francois, haggard, his heart beating, thought that he saw Cocotte struggling in the mud with the simplicity of a peasant. He kept saying to himself, "What does the poor beast think of me now?" He almost lost his mind. He was ill for a month, and every night he dreamed of his dog. He could feel her licking his hands and hear her barking. It was necessary to call in a physician. At last he recovered toward the 2nd of June, and his employers took him to their estate at Bizard, near Rouen. There again, he was near the Seine. He began to take baths. Each morning he would go down with the groom, and they would swim across the river. One day, as they were disporting themselves in the water, Francois suddenly cried to his companion, "Look what is coming! I'm going to give you a chop!" It was an enormous swollen corpse that was floating down with its feet sticking straight up in the air. Francois swam up to it, still joking. "Whew! It's not fresh. What a catch, old man. It isn't thin, either." He kept swimming about at a distance from the animal that was in a state of decomposition. Then suddenly he was silent and looked at it attentively. This time he came near enough to touch it. He looked fixedly at the collar. Then he stretched out his arm, seized the neck, swung the corpse around, and drew it up close to him. It read on the copper, which had turned green, and which still stuck to the discolored leather, "Mademoiselle Cocotte, belonging to the coachman Francois." The dead dog had come more than 100 miles to find its master. He let out a frightful shriek and began to swim for the beach with all his might, still howling, and as soon as he touched land, he ran away wildly, stark naked, through the country. He was insane.